So this is reducing a little bit. It's probably okay. So tomatoes, fresh tomatoes with basil. And however much you add depends on how much you need, of course. I always never guess it right, and I always think I'm going to remember next time I make lasagna how much I used, but I never do. So better to err on the side of too much sauce, and then you can always just freeze it or whatever and use it for pizza sauce or spaghetti sauce. It's always good to have just some really nice homemade marinara in the freezer real quick, easy dinner. In fact, you can probably make it in about the time that it takes to thaw it out, but if you don't do the meat step, it actually is very quick. If you're making marinara, you just I just start with olive oil, a couple of onions or one, and some garlic. Throw in a little bit of wine if you have it. If you don't, just use tomatoes and some basil, Italian seasoning, salt and pepper, and some of this bouillon. That adds sort of the meaty flavor, and it is as good as any you'll ever have if you get the seasonings right. So that's what I do when I make marinara. I can make a good marinara in about 20 minutes, so about the time it takes to boil the water. So if you add the meat step, then it takes a little bit longer, but that actually adds a lot of extra complexity and flavor. So this is going to reduce down a little, not reduce, but simmer. Turn it down so it doesn't pop all over you. Simmer that for a while, and then I'm going to add the basil, chopped basil to it, and let it kind of steep there at the end. It kind of adds a little sweetness, so you don't have to add sugar if you're used to sweet flavor marinara. Oops, I forgot to show you the step of putting in the bouillon. This is beef based. I usually use chicken for marinara. For some reason I like it better. So I don't actually, let me see here. Let me taste this. See what salt is in this stuff. It needs more salt, so this will be fine. Not that much for this, I imagine. That's what's a heaping tablespoonful. Probably 4 or 5 teaspoons. And each one of these teaspoons is supposed to make a cup of broth. So I think 1 teaspoon into 8 ounces, yep. So that's enough salt for 1 cup of whatever it is. So there's probably enough salt now. And then of course you can adjust the salt later. So that's going to dissolve in there and simmer a bit. And I will add some black pepper, and here's where you add this Italian seasoning. Oh, and you can add a bay leaf in here too. Not like that. I don't know. Just a couple tablespoons maybe. Bay leaves, if you have them, are good to put in right now. Just count how many you have and then take them out before you blend it if you do, or use it in your lasagna. I don't have bay leaves here, so that's going to have to be forgotten. So that will simmer, and the herbs will sort of be happy with each other and make little baby flavors. And then we'll put the basil in, as I've said 7 times already. I apologize for being repetitive. There are a few things in life better than a bunch of fresh basil. Does life get any better? I submit that it cannot. So good. Smell. Have a smell. Delicious, summery, flavory, delicious, licoricey stuff. Love it. I would wear it behind my ears if I could. So this gets washed and chopped up, and it will go in at the end. Now this may look like a lot of basil. I pulled the leaves off the stem. Some of them can be tough, the big ones, but it is not a lot of basil. This is one package of one of the large packages, and you could put easily 2 of those in this sauce, and I think I will. It kind of dissolves and melts, as I said. It's very almost impossible, I've found, to add too much basil. Worst case, you get a kind of a tomato pesto, so it's always good. Okay, so the way you do basil is, first of all, I'm just kidding. You can do it however you want. You don't have to chiffonade it or anything. I like to kind of roll it up into a bunch and chop it, and then chop it across wise, so it's kind of small dice. But You could actually, if you're going to blend it up, which I'm going to do, you could actually just throw it in whole. And but I found that if you chop it a little bit, it blends a little bit better. So, you know, rough chop, crossways, and go the other way. That's probably just fine. And then this will sort of steep and sort of dissolve in there. And then, as I said, I'm going to food process the sauce first before I use it in the assembly of the lasagna, which I'm going to do tomorrow at some point. That's the hardest part about making lasagna, is basically the prep. It's, you know, you need a good sauce, whatever you're going to put in it, like meat. I'm going to do sausage, and I'm also going to saute some mushrooms tomorrow and garlic. For those people who don't like mushrooms, I have people in my family who are, due to some mental instability, are not fond of mushrooms. So I'm going to put, you know, do one without or one with, or do half with mushrooms and half without. So in that case, you wouldn't add it to the sauce, because then it's hard to pick out. So, and then if you have any other insane people, such as vegetarians, then you would obviously leave the meat out of one of them or half of it. If you really want to play Russian roulette, you could have meat in one half and mushrooms in the other half. And so the people who don't like mushrooms have to have meat, and people who don't like meat have to have mushrooms, even if they don't like it. That's the one way you can be kind of passive-aggressive and get back at people who don't like the food you eat. Just kidding. Alright, it's getting late. Rock and roll. I see you tomorrow after I put the basil in and the sits and the wets and the sauce and gets all happy. And so see you tomorrow. Bye. Okay, you talked me into it. One more note before I go to bed. You have to watch your tomato sauce. Especially if you put a lid on it, it will heat up and it will start to stick. And if it burns, you are screwed, my friend. Alrighty, so we're going to make the filling for the lasagna. Ricotta, whatever you have. This probably isn't particularly good stuff, but it's what they have. If it's not coming out, then you can just make a hole in the back like that, and it will slip out. That's science content. Thank you, Igor. So, that probably isn't very interesting for you to see. Yes, excellent.
What is that?
This is ricotta cheese.
Ricotta cheese for lasagna.
So then we're going to put some Italian seasoning in here. And some chips. No, we're not going to put any chips in there. And a couple of eggs and maybe a little bit of olive oil. And if you have some Parmesan cheese or, you know, Romano or something else, you can throw that in there. And I'm going to put a bunch of this basil in there. And some salt and pepper, because the ricotta isn't particularly salty usually, and if there's a lot of ricotta in there, it kind of can get bland. So spice it up good, salt and pepper, then egg, a couple of eggs. I think maybe 2 or 3 eggs in this one, because it's a lot. And whatever cheese you have. I think I'm going to put a little bit of mozzarella in here, because I don't have anything else. And then we'll assemble the lasagna. Actually, I have to saute the onions, the mushrooms, don't I?
Lasagna.
The what, honey?
That's the assembly.
Assembly the lasagna? It means put it together.
Oh. 9.
Make sure that it's going into the bowl, though.
11.
On your feet doesn't really help us out.
15. 16. 17.
Make sure it's going in, son.
19. 20.
There's the sauce that has sat overnight.
21. 22. 23.
Good. Okay.
24.